All right, guys. Let's finish this up, shall we? Here's what we're going to do. I have this. It's a blank copy of the spreadsheet, which I just uploaded to my Discord. I hope it works. If not, let me know, and I will do like I'll upload it to like Google Docs later on, or something like that, and figure out how to get it out to you. But it is in the Discord channel on my Discord labeled Spreadsheet Release, which makes a lot of sense when you think about it because I'm releasing the spreadsheet to you guys. I'm going to show you guys how to use it. There is also a tutorial over there, which looks like this and is very long. I highly recommend you kind of read through it before you start working on the spreadsheet if you've never done it before. But the key thing here is this down here. Holy smokes. So starting on page 27, this is where you're going to set up your view. So when you go, we're going to start with, we're going to log out here. We're going to go to here. And we're going to do it with a small tournament. We'll do it with a regular iron tournament. How about that? We're going to start by showing you how to export data and import it into the sheet. And so what you're going to want to do, if my computer doesn't die on me, is you're going to go to your tournament screen, statistics, sortable stats. And then you're going to have to make sure all players are selected here. The nice thing is that the way that they pull players from tournaments now, you don't need to use a filter anymore. You used to have a filter that made it work. I do all of my players in one sheet, so they all come into one sheet. We'll talk about that a little bit more and how to get bigger tournaments, because it can get bulky pretty quickly. Make sure no splits are set, because they don't track splits for tournaments. And then you're going to come over to this view, and you're going to have to put all of this stuff in there in order for it to work with this sheet. So I will say I have not tested this sheet with like Google Sheets or anything like that. I use Microsoft Excel 365. I find it's a pretty good value. You get Excel, you get Word, you get PowerPoint, you get everything that you could possibly need from a document standpoint with Excel. And this isn't an ad, but that's what I use. I find it the most user friendly. And so I do not know if this will work with like Google Sheets or anything like that. You guys can try it out and throw it in there. Is your download view format similar to the one DRC used? Probably. Mine might be a little bulkier because I do a lot with ratings and stuff like that. Thanks for stopping by, Detroit Fury. Thanks. I appreciate the kind words. I do try to help new people, and I hope if I turn anybody onto the game, it's a fantastic game. Even the offline version, I've been playing for like 15 years, and I've probably gotten more value out of the park thing, out of the whole out of the park developments team than I have out of any other team in history. So it's it's been really like an honor for me to be able to stream on their official channel and stuff like that, because they got me through deployments. The out of the park 6.5 got me through being stuck in Germany for a month and a half while I was almost dying. So for this opportunity to come up and to be able to have streamed on their official channel in this regard, and to be able to do it for you guys, has been really like just a huge honor for me. And I love the team. Marcus, Matt have been there for a decade and a half. And while they don't know who I am, I've been downloading their stuff and playing their game. It's the only thing I've bought for 15 years straight, 16 years straight now. It's just the greatest value that I could possibly hope for. So it's been a super honor. So yeah, when you set your stuff up, right, it's going to look like this. So you'll have all of this. I recommend going through each one of these and just clearing it out completely. So just go through batting ratings, hit clear, pitching ratings, hit clear, and then start from scratch. And you're going to have to do it in exactly this order. It's a lot. It's like 3.5 pages worth of a list. And so when you go through it, I would double, triple check it to make sure this is in the right order, because when the transition came from 21 to 22, there were some things that when you go click on them, they add in the wrong order. So make sure everything's in the exact order that it is on this sheet. I'm not going to go through the order here for you guys right now because it would take the rest of the day. I appreciate it, Hero Driver. And yeah, I appreciate the kind words, guys. So in order to export it to the sheet, you're going to go over here to report, and you're going to hit write report to disk. What is that? My computer is dying on me right now. You're going to go report, write report to disk, and it's going to open up in your default browser. This is the embarrassing part for me. My default browser for Out of the Park is Internet Explorer. Feel free to make fun of me as much as you want. So there's a couple ways from here to export. Right? So there's a couple ways to export this into Excel. So in smaller tournaments, basically what I found, and this is going to vary by computer, but thanks, Buke. I appreciate it. Thanks for stopping by. So I know I thanked Cavicom specifically earlier. Buke is another guy that I'm glad you were able to stop in. Buke is another guy who's been around since the beginning as well, when it was just me, him, and Cavicom, and one or two other people who were just opening packs. And it was just packs back then, and then it's turned into something just absolutely huge. And Buke has been awesome from the start, and I consider you a very good friend as well now. So thank you for stopping by, and I'm glad you were able to stop by today, Buke. So exporting. We're gonna get through this. So what I do for smaller tournaments is you can just go Control A. It's gonna select everything. Control C and copy it. And then you can go over to the blank sheet, and in the topmost blank spot in column A, keep that in mind. So this is for column A. Right click in here, and then paste special. Match destination formatting is what you're gonna want. If you don't do that, so if you just hit Control V like you're just doing a regular thing, it's going to do something like this. Holy processor is not happy with me right now. It's going to look like this, and that's not what we want. That's not helpful to anybody. So we're going to undo that eventually, and we're going to go right click, paste with match destination formatting, and what that's going to do is it's going to do this. So it looks like that. It looks like it should. We're going to take these top two rows. We're going to delete them. I leave at the bottom. If you hit Control all the way to the bottom, I leave this row here, the date, because that's going to help me out with my formatting here. Because what happens is I take the tournament number. For this one, it's 6263. I plug it in here, and then all you have to do is double click on that bottom corner. If you saw, let's undo that real quick. If you see it changes to the little black plus sign, like that, you just double click on that. It copies it all the way down to the next full cell. If that date on the bottom is not there, we'll talk about that in a minute. It will just copy that number all the way down for like 1.2 million cells, which is the max that Excel can handle. And let's talk about these, because these last 6 rows right here, I talk about this in the tutorial. Never delete these. So CER, which is catcher earned runs in game, is the last column that gets copied over by the the view in there. So this is the last column that should get copied over. So if you ever have to delete, start over, like, you can just go to the Discord and download the fresh blank spreadsheet. But if you ever have to like delete certain columns, delete certain parts of your data, just do this, Control Shift copy all the way over to the left side and do that. But don't ever delete these last 7 rows, 8 rows, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I'm going to go over each one of them individually. So starting from IPC, but don't ever delete them, because these calculations are done on the data sheet. And if you delete them, it's gonna mess up the other stuff that it gets pulled over. So IPC is the amount of innings that a pitcher has pitched, because the game exports it as 0.1, 0.2, and Excel looks at that as a tenth or 2/10 as opposed to a third and 2/3, which is what the game has to, which is what you need to be able to do. And so the reason I do that on this sheet is because if you copy it over, then your numbers are going to be messed up already if you try to do it over to a pivot table or whatever. So it has to be done individually by individual appearances for your pitchers in each tournament. And so that's why that happens here. The C only is where I look up catchers only. This is for usefulness for the catcher run save data, because I use only players who are only catchers, because elsewise you get, I think I just made up another word, elsewise we're just gonna run with it. You get player like catchers who the innings pitched mess up the catcher ERA. So when I'm calculating catcher statistics, I use only the catchers, only players who will be only catchers. This is the innings played. The IPFC is the innings played in the field for players who are only catchers. Again, that is for only catchers and for catcher runs. And then this is catchers earned runs for catchers only. So all three of these rows or columns right here are calculations used to ensure that we're getting only data from players who are only catchers into our catcher defense tab. We'll talk about the catcher defense tab in a little bit. Yes, Control Shift down selects the whole thing. Yeah, so that's another way you can do it, Caprine Assassin. I'm going to show you guys another way to copy that column as well. There's a couple different ways to do it. That first column. These two look at utility infielders, and so the utility infield looks at infield ratings, and any player that has more than 2 infield positions will get a designation here as a utility player. This is useful for spreadsheets and filtering on pivot tables, and the same thing for the outfielders, only it's 2 or more. This is innings played in the field for all players in the field. I'm not currently using that for anything in the sheet, but it's there. And then this is just a dumb column that I added because I pulled the card dump from last month, and we'll talk about that and how you can use that. So this looks up players in the most recent card dump, and if they're a new card from the card dump, it'll say yes, otherwise it'll say no. So these 7, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, these 8 columns, don't delete them if you're using this data. Just leave them alone. It'll automatically fill in. And then after you download stuff, I'm going to grab a couple tournaments, but at first it is currently set to have these for 500 rows. 498 rows is what they go down to in the default spreadsheet. So keep in mind, if you are doing less data than that, which why would you? It's like 2 iron tournaments. Is all you'd have to download to get that. If you have less, just delete from the row below it and then go Control Shift over, Control Shift down, and then delete from there. But you should never have to do that. And as the sheet gets larger, as you get further down on the sheet, these will automatically fill in as you go down. So as you add more rows to this sheet, these will automatically fill those rows as you go down. So right now you can see we're at, what are we at? 381. So I'll download another iron tournament just to show you how that's going to work. We'll download 6252. How about that? You're very welcome, Ice-T. And so again, make sure when you come in here, anytime you close the client out and reopen the client, come in here and make sure that all players is selected. Sometimes it will go to all batters or all pitchers. So you're going to want to get all the players in the tournaments. It'll open up in a browser again. We'll hit Control A, copy, and then we'll go over here. And we'll scroll down. And now when you enter this, you're just gonna want to click right on the first row of the date here, and you can just go copy, paste with formatting setting, match destination formatting. And then, so for those of you watching this on YouTube, keep in mind this is a live stream, so when I stumble because it's a live stream and unedited. We're going to call it 6252, and then we'll do the same thing. You can also go Control Copy, Control Shift down, copy and paste it that way, or you can go, there will be times where you might have to go copy, Control down over here, and then Control Shift up to copy is another way for you to do that. I like for the smaller tournaments, I like to do just the double click on the bottom right. And so, like I said, it'll automatically expand those columns down because now we're on row 787, so it should automatically do that. I recommend coming down and making sure and checking that all of them are filled in, because sometimes for whatever reason it'll skip one or two for whatever reason. So I'll just come down to the bottom and hit Control up and make sure that it goes all the way to the top of the sheet, just to make sure that you got all the data in there that you wanted. And so the data is exported. Let's talk about doing bigger tournaments. So I have found in my time doing this that sometimes bigger tournaments don't always quite work out. The Control A, Control Copy doesn't necessarily work. So we'll say with like a 128 team tournament, like a daily late iron perhaps. You'll go in here, and I'm not actually going to copy this into the sheet because it'll mess everything up, but eventually it's going to open. I have to jump soon. Yeah, thanks again, EBC. And I'm glad that I could make it even more fun for you. So you do the same thing. You export it from here exactly the same way. It's going to take a second, depending on your processor. Some of this may take longer. Some of it may be quicker if you have a better processor than me. This is mostly processor-based computing. There's not a lot of like video card, graphics cards that are going to help you out. And so my processor is currently 2 years old. So when you see some stuff take a long time, that's because I'm trying to get my dumb processor to do 3,100 lines of code. So for this tournament, instead of 300 players, we have 3,100 players. So we're going to do the exact same thing. It's going to export it to here. And it's going to take a second. Is there a way to see the lifetime personal tourney stats of a card, like a compilation of the career stats your Satchel Page cards has compiled while just on your team? No. Not in-game, there's not. But you can use this sheet to do it. So you'll notice 3,000 players takes a lot longer to open up. It finally opened up. I have found that anything 64 teams and above, my computer is not capable of doing a Control A, Control Copy, right click into Excel, into the spreadsheet that's already there. So what I have to do there is I just make sure it's not selected. And what will happen is it'll just get hung up. It'll go not responding, and then it'll just not plug anything in there. So you can see everything takes just a little bit longer with this 128 team tournament. So at that point, right click on this screen. Eventually, it'll pop up. I'm going to have to edit this video, aren't I? This is the reason that I use Internet Explorer. This is the only reason I use Internet Explorer for this. Internet Explorer, as soon as you right click, you'll see this line that says export to Microsoft Excel. Depending on the browser you are using, you may have to get an extension. I know there's a Chrome extension that will allow you to do that. I don't know about other browsers. I haven't looked into it that much. I'm really not that smart. I'm just really good at Google, and that's how I've made this whole spreadsheet work. So if you go down here, you export it to Microsoft Excel, what it's going to do is it's going to open its own Excel spreadsheet with all of that stuff. It's still going to take a second, but it's not going to lock up your other sheet because it's only using this data. So it's still going to take a minute for the formatting and everything to export it to Excel. And you'll see this is just me sitting here waiting for Microsoft Excel to reopen with all of the data I want. So then it's going to go like that. And then it's going to finish populating eventually. I should have done this with a 64 team tournament instead of a 128 because they're a little bit faster, like twice as fast. And then it pops up and it looks like this. And then all you have to do is you just have to hit Control Shift from this top row. The pitchers and the batters, so if the top player is a pitcher, these will usually end up blank. And so you're going to one Control Shift right will not select everything. it will only go to there. If it's a batter on the top, then it will usually go all the way to the right. So you're going to want to make sure you get the whole sheet, hit Control Shift right until you get to that catcher earn run column, hit Control Shift down, copy it, and then you're going to go in here, and when you add it, what's going to happen is you're going to put it in this column B, this card ID column, because you're not getting that blank column anymore. So now you can just press Control V, and I can do that. So now you can just press Control V. I'm going to end up deleting this stuff here in a minute. And it'll populate like that. And it'll look just like your sheet. It'll add everything. But now keep in mind that when you add this tournament, we'll call it 25 for now. So now if you do that double click, it's going to populate the whole thing because that is not there, right? Occasionally it'll delimit it at the bottom of the sheet, but let's see what happens. Oh, it did. Okay, so maybe it'll work and it'll delimit it at the bottom of the sheet, but sometimes it'll just copy like 1.2 million. So it still worked for me. This time doesn't always work. So just keep that in mind that the double click may or may not always work. And so, yeah. That's what I normally do, Axel, but it doesn't always, like the formatting and stuff doesn't always do this. Doesn't always work right. So we're going to go ahead and delete that, and we'll go back to there. All right, so now your data is imported from, or exported from Excel to, or from out of the park to Excel. I'm going to have to do an actual video for this, aren't I? Because this is embarrassing. Now, how do you get it over here? Because if we go over here, you're going to see this is still blank. Oh no. So you're going to come over to this BatPres data sheet. So this sheet, we'll talk about exactly what it is here in a little bit, but you're going to want to find basically any sheet with a pivot table in it. This is the first one on here with a pivot table. Click somewhere on the pivot table. This is a regular table, not a pivot table. Click somewhere on the pivot table. Go up to Pivot Table Analyze, hit Refresh, and refresh all. DRC's video on this is way better than mine, just so we're clear. It'll take a minute, depending on how much data you entered. And you're going to see that finished. Once it finishes, it did that. We don't see anything yet. That's because our value filters are set too high. We only downloaded 2 tournaments. So I'm going to set the value filter to 50. So this is sum of plate appearances is greater than or equal to 50. And that should bring up some players. There we go. It did give us an NA issue because why is Tommy Malone selected? Tommy Malone, I hate you. How did those get selected as all? I know what's going on there. Make sure you have not your pitchers selected here. Get a closer, get a relief pitcher, get a starting pitcher. Normally that will be not selected. So yeah, I know what happened there, and I'll fix that on the template in the thing. It's because the last thing I did was set it to all, and so it was set to all. So there you go. You get your hitters. These are all your stats for your hitters on a pivot sheet. Uh-oh. That's sad. We have an Amber Alert somewhere near us. So that's how you get everything into a pivot table. So there you go. So now I'm going to go through these tabs one at a time for you guys. If you have questions, post them in chat, and I will answer them to the best of my ability. You dipped your toes into doing tournament stats with Python, and it winds up being a pretty different experience. I have not dealt with Python. I don't know. I use a lot of Visual Basic for Excel, and I have some working knowledge of like C# and C++, but I have not delved into Python at all, and it's scary to me. So this is our sheet. This is our data sheet. We just went over that. I don't think we have any more questions on that. The summary sheet is really interesting. This is where I get my summary lists from. There is a table or a button over here that once you get everything set up and the stuff imported, you can hit this button and it will go through and update this. So this doesn't update automatically because of the way I do the presentation. So when you hit this button, it runs some programming that automatically goes through the whole presentation and adds the 10 catchers. Then it switches to the first baseman, then it switches to the second baseman, and then the third baseman, yada, yada, yada. Keep in mind, when you press that button, there is some programming that it runs through, and it does take usually about 30 seconds to a minute for me to run through it. Right now, yeah, you know what? Let's just show you what it does. So you hit the button, it sits. Let's hope it doesn't break. There you go. So you can see all the players changing here, and it goes through and it adjusts them based off of the presentation. And it's pretty cool. This is probably my favorite thing. That's not true. Not my favorite thing. Then it does the pitchers and the relief pitchers, who we don't have any yet because I didn't adjust the innings pitch for them because we only have 2 Iron tournaments worth of data over there. So that's what the summary sheet does. And when you have the pitcher presentation set up, it'll do the pitchers as well. And so that, you probably won't have to use that for any reason whatsoever, but I didn't want to delete the whole thing out of the sheet because I think it's pretty neat. This is your player comparison. I did not get around to finishing this, guys. I'm sorry. I might someday come back to it and finish this, but it's not going to be anytime soon. Basically, you plug in a card ID here, and it will automatically look up their stats, and it will automatically look up their ratings for you, so that you compare the 2 side by side. If you want to add to this, just copy and paste a row, and just go copy, paste, and then add a 3rd row, and you can just add whatever you want. You can do hundreds of players or whatever you want to do. It's something that could be really useful. I just never got around to finishing it. This is the lineup tool. So we're going to talk about this in a minute. But basically, this takes data from the team that you enter that you have and recommends a lineup. Let's just go ahead and we'll do that. Let's do that and make it happen. So I'm going to go into my team. And so basically what I'm going to do is on this sheet, this team builder sheet, we'll talk about this one first. So on this team builder sheet, this side is your current team. Unfortunately, you have to hand jam this and plug the card IDs in manually. This side, don't touch. This side comes from the presentation. We'll talk about that in a minute. This is the team that you're trying to build off of what you're doing with the spreadsheet. So I'm going to go ahead and hand jam my team in here. If you just go to your default setting, so I start with the versus righties. So obviously I'm running Ali Sanchez because I am a rule follower, and that's the rule. Zimmerman, this is not an optimized team. I can tell you that already. So 2-6-2-4-1 for Tyler Wade, 2-6-5-1-3 for Franco. This team is terrible. It's no wonder I'm not winning. And I don't have enough data on those 2 guys to even get them in there, do I? 2-6-4-2-1. My finger was messed up. 2-6-5-1-3. We're going to switch to somebody else at third base, I think. Baylor at shortstop. Left field is Billy McKinney. What am I doing? Probably an NA there. No, he's got some appearances. Monty Harrison. I think I let the AI build this team. Aristides Aquino. Let's see our DH. We'll just put Gregor Polanco, and I'll just fill those in. And then I'm going to have to pick let's see if Kiner Falefa works here at third base. There we go. So I'm just going to plug the lineup in for now. Where are we? So I plugged the lineup in. Well, it didn't get my designated hitter, so I'm going to have to pick another hitter here, and we'll make it 2-6-4-7-6. Somebody's using Yolmer Sanchez, right? So you're going to want to plug all of these in because it's going to look at this and then it'll tell you if they're in your lineup and if they're in your collection. But what's going to happen is it's going to plug all those players in over here, and then it looks at average, on base percentage, slugging percentage, OPS, WOBA, home runs. It ranks them all according to those stats. And then keep in mind that this is a little bit subjective on my part. So it looks at that, it ranks them. So like I consider my number 3 hitter to be the most important hitter. So it takes these ranks right here and it adds, let's see, my 3 hitter adds OPS plus their home runs rank plus their weighted on base average rank. So basically the 3 things there. And then the lowest one is gonna be my number 3 hitter. And then it fills in and it looks at who's got the lowest rating in that category. It fills it in, then it fills in my leadoff hitter, and then it goes yada yada yada. So it looks it all up automatically. And then keep in mind, it doesn't look at left versus right. It's going to change as time goes on. So as you add more data, your lineup may change. This is not like, don't just take this and use this as your lineup. Make sure you're making smart decisions with your team. But it's just a baseline to go off of, based off of stuff. And like I said, it's totally subjective. Kind of subjective, because I do number 3 first, my leadoff hitter second, my number 2 hitter third, I think 4, 5, 9, 6, 8, 7 or something like that is the way that it goes. Because what it does is it looks at that and then it looks at that while it looks at the number 1 rank while ignoring that. I don't have to go into all the programming. Just know that it works and don't start deleting stuff out of here or you'll mess the whole thing up. And there you go. So hopefully some of that made sense. This is your team builder. This is a team analysis page, which is going to look at your desired team. Team builder. Oh, no. This is going to look at the team you have built and tell you how, like, what your ratings are overall versus left versus right. This is another thing that I'm kind of not finished with. You can see I didn't even get around to doing the pitchers. But it'll tell you, hey, you've got 7 hitters with 50 to 69 gap power. You've got 3 at 50 to 69 power. And so it just kind of categorizes your players so you can see kind of what you're missing on your team. So if you're going all power, or if you have too much contact or not enough gap, or if everybody just is terrible because you're an iron, it'll look at that. Again, this is kind of a work in progress that I just didn't get around to finishing, and I'm sorry, and I may get back around to finishing that. But if you delete these 2 tabs because they annoy you, it's not going to affect anything else on this sheet. Nor will this one will not affect anything else on the sheet. This one you have to be kind of careful about because it affects other things on the sheet. Player comp you can delete as well. Does not affect anything else on the sheet. Nothing linked to it. This is the batter presentation. Oh, that's really annoying. Does anybody have any questions so far? And is anything I'm doing or saying making any sense? So this is the presentation. This is what you guys see on screen. This is the magic. So what this does is when you set a position, so it's going to set this sheet, the bat pres data sheet, to catcher, and then it's going to adjust them. So right now we have the plate appearance limit set to 50. When you download it by default, it is going to be set to 600 minimum plate appearances. So if you don't have anybody with 600 plate appearances, you're going to get nobody here, which will lead to everything being NA. Once you do that, it sets the number to 10. It sets the lookup number to 10, and then what it's looking up is their total value. So this sheet looks at their offensive value, it looks at their defensive value, it adds them together, and then it gives you a total value. So when it starts at number 10, it's looking for the number 10 total value. If you have less than 10, your presentation will start off with NAs here. Nothing to be concerned with. You just scroll up to your first one, and that's what you're going to get. And then you can scroll through as you wish, just like that. As Garrett Stubbs is now the number 1 iron catcher because, why not? So some cool things on this screen. Okay, so you've got your meta here, which is showing by this position how many people or who is getting used the most. You've got your meta over here, which is showing you batters, pitchers, and all that, and who's getting used the most over there. This is how you sort your data. So you switch to first baseman and you're going to get first baseman. We have 11 qualifiers already. And then you have your stats down here. Down here you got your league batting stats, which you can compare your hitters to and whatnot. And then over here is really the real magic of what you guys might like using here. So let's say you go up to number 1 and you really like Pavin Smith for whatever reason at first base. So I want to set Pavin Smith as my first baseman and versus lefties and versus righties. So what this is this is an image view of the team builder. So this team builder over here is where you plug in the players you want. You can type them in here if you would like to. right, at each position, but the presentation sheet will do it automatically for you, and it will update them automatically. And so what this is going to look for is this player in your lineup over here anywhere? And also it's going to look at this collection, and we'll talk about that in a second. And it's going to look at your collection and see if the player is in your collection. And if it's not, it'll say no. And if it is, it'll say yes. And you know, hey, he's not in my lineup, but he's in my collection. I can go find him. If he's not in my lineup and not in my collection, then, well, I'm going to have to go find him on the auction house or hope I pull him in a pack or something like that. So it's just kind of a cool team building thing. And it populates in here so that you can do it in real time. You don't have to be switching back and forth between sheets, because that gets really annoying. And then you can just click on it once, and then you get the little, just like anything else, you can make it bigger, you can make it smaller, however you want to do it. Again, keep in mind that all of this runs on Microsoft Excel 365. So if you don't have 365, I can't promise it's going to work anywhere else. I don't know if it'll work. It probably will not work in anything before 2017. It might work in 2017 because some of the stuff I use, but for the last year I've been using 365, and I really think it's just a really good value. So I'm just going to fill this lineup up real quick with catchers and first baseman, and you'll be able to see it kind of update in real time here as we go. I'll just kind of do this. So second baseman, what do we want? Nicky Lopez. Let's just run Nicky Lopez, and you'll see it update down there. And then third baseman, you've got, yeah, why not? We'll run Kiner Falefa at third base, and then Sergio Alcantara at shortstop. And then, so one thing this does not check for right now is it does not check for duplicates. So you can accidentally throw duplicate players into your lineup. Like if you like Kiner Falefa at third base and shortstop, it won't give you an error or anything like that. Or if you have him as like your third baseman and then your bench 3 or something like that. So you got bench 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down here. Those are the only ones that have macros. There is a bench 6 over here that you can use. You're going to have to hand jam it for now. That's like if you run like an old tournament where you're running a 3-man rotation or something like that, and you have extra bench spots. But for the most part, this is your normal 26-man roster with present day stats and strategies and stuff like that. And then so left field, let's just throw, Raimel Tapia. We all liked Raimel Tapia. Center field, Almora Jr. Why not? I like his defense. Right field, George Washington in right field. Yeah. And then we'll go, who did we want? Platoon. We're going to platoon with Mark Quinn. And then at DH, we're just going to go whatever. Who's number 1? Number 1 is Emmanuel Rivera. I don't even know who that is. Number 2 is Franchi. We're just going to set him to our bench. We're going to set Buster Adams to our bench 2. We're going to set Vince Dingus to our bench 3 and David Peralta to our bench 4. And Ben Gamel to our bench 5. And you can see all of those update. None of them are in my lineup, and then it'll automatically build it over here. And then the same thing. So the lineup tool, when you fill it out versus lefties, it'll fill out your versus lefties lineup. So you can. And I'm going to show you how to import your collection, Bailey, in just a moment. Looks like it works in Office 19. Good to know, Teddy. So that is that. We went over so that's everything that happens on here. If you hate stuff, if you're like, I don't want to even see catchers run saved, you can totally delete these boxes and it's not going to affect anything else in the sheet. Just realize that if you open it back up, it's not going to be there when you come back. Everything else I think on this is pretty straightforward. Next, previous, reset, sets it automatically back to number 10. And just for posterity's sake, the way this looks it up is it looks up the rank. So this is where the next and previous changes this number here. And that's where it looks up this rank over to the card ID. And then everything else runs off of card ID, basically, is what everything else runs off of. So all of these lookups are going to be looking up off of that card ID. You can see we're getting NAs here because the plate appearances are messed up, and we're getting pitchers in our data here that are causing NAs. If we adjust this to, we'll just adjust it to like 200. Value filters greater than or equal to, call it 200. You'll see it cuts down all the batters, and then we don't get those NAs because the pitchers aren't qualifying. Let's see. That's the presentation. That's the batter stats. This is all of the stats for all of the hitters. This does not have a filter for, this has every batter that has made an appearance in a tournament. So all of the guys with like 1, 2, 3, 4 plate appearances. So this is where your presentation sheet looks up all of that data. It doesn't look it up on here. It looks up the ranks on here, but it doesn't look up that. And actually, no, this looks up the ranks on there. This one, so your team builder, your lineup builder looks up the data from this batting stats all sheet. So keep in mind, this is the one sheet on here that you can sort by a whole bunch of stuff, right? So the problem with this sheet is that the only thing in the pivot table, so the pivot table overrides everything. So keep that in mind. We cannot sort this by on-base percentage rank. We cannot sort it by on-base percentage because these are a separate table. So the only thing we can sort these by are card ID, title, or total plate appearances on the batter presentation data. This one, you can sort however you want. Just keep in mind that if you sort it, or filter it however you want, just keep in mind if you do that, it's going to mess up your lineup tool because this is where that pulls from. So it's a fun sheet for like being like, hey, I want to go, let's go more sort options, come down to descending by on-base percentage. And so what that should do, if I didn't mess it up, is it'll sort them all by top max on-base percentage or whatever. So you can do all sorts of sorting, whatever you want on this sheet. But what I would do is I would leave it at, I leave it at 1. Technically now you can put it at 0 because it gets rid of all of the people who didn't have stuff. So I leave it at 1 just so that I don't get a whole bunch of people with 0 plate appearances for whatever reason. And then you can just sort it however you want. Elsewise, I would probably just leave the whole thing. Really, like, good. I'm glad you like it. And so that is this sheet. So your collection is here. So a couple things about this sheet. So I'm going to close this because that was the rest of the data that we had pulled. I'm going to say no to that. And I'm probably, as I'm doing this live, I'm probably going to go back and do like an actual more professional video on this just to upload it to YouTube. So just keep that in mind. Where am I right now? So in here, at the very end is another view you're going to need for your collection view. So if you want to upload your collection in your tutorial on page 31, it's the last page, is what your view for your collection should be. So if you go into the game and you go to roster management, go to manage cards, set this to, so you can do this a couple ways. You're going to want to make sure all types are set here, all players, no filter. And then what I do here is I go hide duplicates so that I'm not getting a whole bunch of duplicate cards. And then I pull out the hide ineligible cards. I uncheck hide ineligible cards. So this gives me the singles of my entire collection that I have. You can see this is not a very good collection. It's not my main team, as they have finished the live collection, thankfully, but still they're not very good. And then you're just going to write that report to disk. It's going to pop up in here, and then you just do it the same way. So you just hit Control A, Control Copy, and then you bring it over to the Excel sheet. And the same thing here, you're just going to go in this column 1, and you're going to go Match Destination Formatting, which will make it, oh, I should have, hold on, undo. I need to do one thing first. So the first thing you're going to want to do in this sheet is take this column, so column P, and then Control Shift over to select all of the other columns, and then Control Shift down so you select your whole collection, and then just delete that. Because if your collection happened to get smaller for whatever reason and you don't delete it first, then it can, all those cards that are at the bottom are going to stay there. This is the important column. Do not delete it. And so when I go back over here, I'm going to have to recopy it, and then I'm going to go back over here and paste it. And then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to make sure that you come down here, and that the only thing you really have to make sure of here is that the yes has transferred to all of your rows. Make sure that all of the rows that you inputted have a yes next to them, because that's what it's going to look up for if it's on hand in your collection. This one, unlike the other sheet, since this is not a formula, this is just the word yes, if you go longer than what this sheet currently is, which is like 3,300 cards or whatever, it will not automatically copy those. So just when you upload your collection, just come down, make sure that it's copied all of the yeses. And if it hasn't, just copy and paste it all the way back down. And so that is what this will look at for whether it's on hand in your collection or not. And so there you go. Oh, awesome. Thanks for the kind words, Tom. Let's see. So team, let's see, where are we? So batter stats all. There we go. So that's it on those. We're in the home stretch, guys. We've only got like 30 more sheets left to go, but most of them will not mean anything to you. This is the defensive values sheet. So this is where I calculate all the defensive values. It's pivot tables from the values for their defense into their plate appearances or innings played or something, and then it just calculates defensive values. Unless you really hate my defensive values, you probably don't need to do anything to this sheet kind of ever. This is where the batter stats data or the presentation data sheet looks for their defensive value, which is over here. And when you switch it to like catcher, first base, second base, or whatever, it automatically I don't have anybody available, so let's go value filters. Let's set it back to 50. So it automatically changes the column that it's looking for their defensive value from. So you can see over here on the defensive value sheet, there's the catcher, first base, second base, third base. So their values for all their individual positions. So because of the way this looks up the data, you should never really have to change anything on this unless you're like, man, your ratings are whack, I don't even want to use them. You can come over here and change those, but otherwise you should never have to really do anything to this sheet. It should be mostly invisible to you. This is the catcher defense, which is where it looks up. Well, that should be catcher. There. This is where it looks up all of the catchers, and only catchers, and then it takes all of the values off of that. So you got your catcher earned runs, catcher ERA. It's all calculated out based off of that. Runners thrown out percentage. So I don't use the runners thrown out percentage, the stolen bases against per game, the pass balls and stuff in the presentation right now. But if you want to see that stuff, you can come over here. It's here. And then this is where the catcher's run saved is calculated, which goes off of the specific catcher's earned run average over the course of a season. Right now, I've just left it as over the course of the season. So some of the numbers look elevated, which they probably are. And then this is where it pulls that meta sheet off of. It just looks at the top 10 most plate appearances at the current position. You should really not ever have to do anything with this current position meta sheet. Let's adjust the starting pitchers. So value filters greater than or equal to, nope. We're going to leave that at that. We're going to go innings pitched is greater than or equal to, let's call it 25. See if we get anybody. There we go. And so for these, depending on how much data you put in, once you get enough data in, you shouldn't really have to touch these at all. But you can adjust by, like, I'd rather have people with only 6,000 innings pitched. And then so you get your pitcher presentation data, and it works exactly the same as the other one. It just looks at this starting pitcher presentation data sheet. So when you go next, previous, the only difference is the reset goes to 15 instead of 10. And so you'll notice that when you get somebody that's in that top 10, they turn green. It's fun. I like it. And so hopefully it works out for you. And again, you shouldn't have to touch anything on here, but if you want to delete stuff, this is only links from places, not links to places, except for this stuff. If you start messing around with the buttons, I'd just leave them. Starting pitcher data is, it looks like this. Again, same as the other stuff, these data sheets, the presentation data sheets, can only be sorted by this stuff. If you want to sort your pitcher data, you're going to have to go over to this pitching stats all. This is not filtered. And so you can sort it however you want. And then if you really want to, you can go through and change the values on these innings pitched, whatever. So if you really want sortable data, you can adjust the stuff on here as well. This is where it gets, so this pulls from these. So the presentation data sheets pull from the stats all sheets. So just keep in mind, again, when you're messing with this, you may be messing with some other sheets. And so if it gets really totally whacked up, just download a new copy of the spreadsheet and you should be fine. This looks at the new cards just to see how many are getting used. And so when there's a data dump, this is brand new. And so when you're looking, it looks at the new card data dump to see if any of them are used and gives how many plate appearances, innings pitched, or whatever they have. Just so this was meant to be so I could see which ones of the new cards are getting used. And I think that makes sense. So basically what it does, we talked about in that data sheet, you had that new column. So it just filters by cards that have a yes in that column. This is a template pivot table. So if you want to mess around with pivot tables on your own, just take this, make a copy, go move or copy, hit create a copy, put it wherever you want, and you can mess around and make your own pivot table and have fun. So for those of you, I'm not going to go over how pivot tables work or what you should do with them today, but that's how that works. And you can make a new one and play around with it. This is your batter meta. This is where I look at all of the batters and the lefties, righties switches to give you the batter meta pitchers, relief pitchers. And this is where all that information comes from. You shouldn't have to touch these or anything like that. They should be mostly invisible to you. So those are the players. Wow, I've been talking loud. I'm sorry for shouting at you guys. I feel like I'm shouting really loud at you guys at the moment. So yeah. Those are the players. That's how all the player data is done. Teams. So this sheet looks at a specific team's winning percentage. So you can select your team or another team or whatever from the drop down up here. That's the team. And then it'll show you the tournaments they've been in and what their winning percentage is in those tournaments. There you go. You can, if you would like to, select multiple teams, but it's still just going to sort them by... It'll mess up the sorting. I'd recommend just doing one team at a time in here. Because this All Teams tab over here, I'm going to skip over 2 tabs real quick. This All Teams tab over here will show you all of the teams in the tournaments with at least however many games played. So we're going to set this to 10 instead of 40. Once you have more data, it'll fill up easier. And then this looks at my team because of conditional formatting. It's typed in, so it's always going to highlight the decimals for you. I think. Let me check the formatting on that. No, yeah, because it's just always going to look for my team, unfortunately, which you probably won't be seeing too much of them for a little while. Over here, you can go and select your team. We'll do the decimals, and it'll pull up all of their... you're going to have to select tournaments too, because when I deleted everything, it deleted all the tournaments that were selected. And it'll look at all the pitchers, and it'll compare the stats that you're getting out of your pitchers with the stats that they have all time, and then it'll give you the differences there. So let's say we had Matt Bush, who has a FIP, or actually let's just look at Cody Reed, who has a FIP that's 3.7 runs worse than his all-time FIP. Maybe I need to make some strategy adjustments to Matt Bush in order to get him to pitch better, because I really like him. In order to do this over tournament timeframes, you'll just come up here and select the tournaments you want. It's fully selectable. You can do all the tournaments. You can do just the ones that you want, like your last 10 tournaments or whatever like that. Keep in mind this data fills up really fast once you're getting into 10, 15, 20 tournaments a day. Over here, same thing. It's just for the batters. Select those. And there you go. You get your batter data. I did it right that time. First try. We went over this. This looks up the teams that win. Unfortunately, it's not going to work for this Iron tournament right now. If you want to adjust it for tournament, it is currently set to best of 7 32-team tournament. So it looks up all of the teams that have 20 wins, because it takes 20 wins to win a best of 7 32-team tournament. So obviously the Iron, the 16-team Iron, you can change that and be like, and it'll automatically update it. If you get into the bigger tournaments, it takes a little math off your head. But let's see. So 3, 6, 9. Is it 9? 12 wins? 9? I'm gonna have to look it up. My brain is... Oh, this was a big tournament. Not that one. That's not helpful. It's 16, 8, 4, so it should be 12. 12 wins for a 16-team tournament. So if we do that, we should get our 2 tournament winners. Boom. First try. And then it looks them up and it'll give you the top 5 over here. So that's just, as you get more data, again, that'll fill in. One thing to keep in mind is that the way it works is it looks up this team and it'll tell you how many wins they have, and then it brings the max of that over here, and then it'll ignore the teams above them over here. So as you get more teams, so one thing to just keep in mind if you're seeing weird stuff happen is check down here, and if there's more teams than there are rows over here, just copy and paste it down to cover all of the teams. And that's how you look at those teams. These are the calculations for the whole league. This is all taken off of the data sheet. This was my updates, so you can ignore that. I keep track of when I add players and when I do like full strategy updates and team updates and stuff like that for purposes of going through my team. So this calculates the league earned run average. This is where the FIP-C for the league is stored as well. So do not, if you don't delete anything as far as pitching stuff, don't delete this stuff, because this is where the FIP-C is calculated, which is where all of the other sheets that use FIP look up the FIP-C from this box right here. And then this is the league batting stats. That's the stuff that's cut and pasted to that front sheet. All right, so those are the teams and the league calculations. We're almost done. 12, 16, 20. Yeah, yes. All right, so these next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, these next 10 sheets or so are all for the players and that winning percentage, the tournament win percentage, the tournament points percentage, and stuff like that. So basically, this was a pretty involved project that I went through, and it looks at each team in each tournament and all the players on the teams. So here is one piece of advice. If you find that the spreadsheet is being really, really stupid and really, really sluggish, and this stuff is useless to you, right? Just delete these tabs. They do pull to one or two other places, but it's not like they're not used for calculations or anything like that. What'll end up happening is you'll get an NA or something like that on the presentation. It's literally two spots on the presentation sheets. Is where they go. So you'll just get like a big ugly NA on the presentation sheet. So what it looks at is the champions. And again, this is set for a 32 team tournament. So if you do a 32 team best of 7 tournament. So if you do want to use this, you're going to have to, it'll automatically work for like your bronze best of 7s or your silver best of 7s, your regular tournaments. But if you want to use this for bigger or smaller tournaments, you're going to have to make some adjustments in the calculations on all of these sheets. And so basically what it looks at, so it would look at the players on all the teams that won 20 games in a 32 team tournament. And then it looks it all up for throughout the rounds, and then it goes in here and it looks at all of their appearances. This is where data gets super bulky, and I considered just taking it out completely because it's kind of extraneous. It's more fun than anything else. And so if you guys find that this is really jacking up your sheets and making them go really slow, just shoot me a message and I'll try to just delete them for the template that's on there, the blank template. And then it looks at this data, which filters into this list and then shows all the players. So up here, you got like Josh Spence, who has minimum however many appearances. It sees this is how much their point percentage is. If you end up with ties, I don't delineate for ties or anything on here right now. So that's why you're seeing a lot of NAs in here, is just because there's ties or numbers that aren't appearing or stuff like that. So just keep that in mind. So you got most appearances here. You've got highest reward percentage down here. You've got the points percentage down here, which is where it looks up how many times they were in round 1, round 2, round 3, qualify the quarterfinals, semifinals, finals, champions, and then looks up the amount of points based off of how many things they do. And then it filters it all into that main sheet. So again, more fun than anything else. And this sheet specifically can end up really big, really fast. So it might behoove you to just, when you download the thing, just go like this and just select all of these and just delete all of them, because it's not going to affect anything else in the rest of the sheet, and it's more extraneous than anything else. So there you go. Those are my thoughts on that, and hopefully it made sense. This is where I do the live card dumps. I'm going to clear all the filters off of this, which I think it was just that. So on this, one of the issues I've run into on these live card updates is that I love the out of the park guys, so don't take this as me ragging on them. But every month when Chris updates the live cards, he changes the format that the sheet's in. So what you'll have to do is the card ID row or column, you'll have to copy and paste that. Then you'll have to copy and paste the title column. Do not touch this. This is a calculation based off of this column to give you their positions. Not going to mess anything up really, other than you won't be able to filter by position if you change anything to this column. This is their team. It's kind of extraneous, but you can go select, shift, select down. And so each month when you get the card update, if you're wanting to use this, just July, August, consider that last month, this month. And then everything else on this sheet will automatically calculate, right? So you put last month's column in here, you put this month's column in here, it'll automatically calculate the change. It looks and sees what previous level they were in, what current level they're in, and then it says, hey, these are the bronze cards, so these next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 columns here, bronze, iron, silver, gold, diamond, perfect. The cards that are currently in bronze, it will show whether they are not bronze. You can take that down. It'll show you the ones that came down. It'll show you the ones that stayed in bronze. It'll show you the ones that moved up from iron to bronze. And so if you want to filter by that, so let's just take the NA out. This will give us all the bronze cards and show us where they came from. And so basically this is all your live bronze cards in one sheet. And then if you'd rather just see the cards that came down from, say, silver or higher, you can just click the down button. And then now you have all of the cards that dropped from silver, which is super useful because we like cards that drop from silver to bronze because they generally happen to perform okay because they were silver before. And especially like I find that it helps super helpful with like pitchers because you can really get a beat on. The problem with this sheet is that I don't have ratings on here because the way that my sheets look up ratings, it can only take the ratings from the cards that you've downloaded in. So I don't put ratings or anything on here, so you'll just be able to see. But what you will be able to see is how many appearances they have this month or last month or whatever, which are all reading 0 right now. And then you can do the same. So these other sheets, L iron, L bronze, L silver, etc., are cards that left that format and went somewhere else. So we go and get rid of this. We can see cards that moved from bronze to somewhere else. So you can see these cards move from bronze to silver, and these cards move from bronze to iron. This is pretty cool. It just takes a little bit of work each month to get that update in here. And really, like I said, I recommend not touching this because the way that the formula works, it looks up. You can filter by position here, but if you mess up the column, you won't be able to filter anymore. And then this is the card dump. So this was the August card dump, I think. It might be the September card dump. Yeah, I think this was the September card dump. So basically, I just copy the title, card ID, and the overall over, and then this is where that new card sheet, the new card use sheet, looks for the new players and then checks to see how many plate appearances they have, and if. So it'll look up all the card IDs that have a new listed next to them. And that is the sheet, guys. That is everything that is in there. Was that a good tutorial? I hope you enjoyed that. We have 80 packs to open. I gotta check the time. Oh, we got loads of time.